Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast. Have you ever heard the phrase nurses eat their young? Feeding Our Young is more than a podcast, it's a movement. It's a desire to see new nurses of all ages be supported and uplifted by their peers, and it starts with me, it starts with you. So join host Eric Miller, registered nurse of nearly 20 years and adjunct clinical instructor, and today's honored guest, me, Lily Wright, and be ready to have your life uplifted so you can, in turn, uplift others. Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Feeding Our Young podcast. I'm going to start this episode with a confession. I use performance-enhancing drugs. Oh, man, that feels good getting that off my chest. I've been wanting to say that for quite some time. Yeah, everyone knows I'm a runner, and I took the whole winter off, and I just picked up running again here after forcing myself to have a nice little break. I picked it back up a few weeks ago, and today, before recording this session here, this morning, I ran my 216th half marathon, which so happens to be the first half marathon of 2026, and the first one in about 6 months. What are the performance-enhancing drugs that I'm referring to that I use? Well, it's the podcast, really. It's the honored guests that I get to meet, and it's the inspiration that comes from them. Yeah, I can't help but confess it. Anytime I get to talk to people that I've either never met or barely met or didn't know prior to having a discussion with, I walk away, man, with a stronger, more inspired, bigger kick in my step, maybe even a little more motivation, dare I say it. So yeah, this podcast is my performance-enhancing drug. And I got another secret for you, too. You're using it as well. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. I won't tell anybody that you use performance-enhancing drugs, but why am I bringing all this up and in this manner and in this fashion today? I'll tell you why. Because the honored guest that's in studio right here, right now, is so inspiring that I'm going to say you're probably not going to want to listen to the whole thing all at once. Because here's the warning label. If you do, you're doing so at your own risk. These performance-enhancing drugs are so inspiring that it might prove to be fatal. Yeah, that's how inspiring she is. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the one, the only, Lily Wright. Lily, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's sunny and it's a Friday.
2 wins in our book, yes?
Yes.
And you had told me before we started recording, you worked before this.
Yeah, just my front desk job on campus. Nothing too bad. Just doing some homework.
But working on a sunny Friday, so it still works.
Yes.
Well, let's stop wasting time with me flapping my gums about performance-enhancing drugs and running and blah, blah, blah. And the only reason why I brought that up was because everybody's always like, well, you keep talking about running and then you stop talking about running. That's because I took a break. And so today was my 216th half marathon in 11 years and my first in about 6 months. And so we're back on the train again, everybody. And more importantly than that, I want to get to know this exciting, encouraging person. So Lily, without further ado, where do you attend university? Are you a graduate? When are you going to graduate if you weren't?
I go to Gonzaga and I graduate in May, so in just 4 short weeks.
I love it. And despite her going to Gonzaga, this is not one of those cases where I said, hey, Lily, do you want to be on the podcast? I'm officially meeting Lily today, in this capacity. And so Lily had reached out to me, said, I got some things I want to share with nursing students. And I was like, let's go. So this is kind of as cold turkey as it gets. She could be from anywhere and it wouldn't matter because I'm getting to know her just like you guys are. So then with that, Lily, where is home for you? Where are you from?
So I've lived in Spokane the longest, 11 years, but my dad was in the Army before that. So I've lived in Kansas, Louisiana, and South Carolina before this.
Oh my goodness. But Spokane the longest.
Yes.
So if you don't mind my asking then, because I am a local and have lived in Washington my whole life and Spokane for half of it roughly, how would you compare these four places as best as you can remember?
It's really hard to compare, honestly, because they're all just so different. You
Yeah.
have the Midwest, you have the Deep South, because we lived in New Orleans, Louisiana,
Yeah.
which that was a really fun city to live in. And then you have like the Southeast in South Carolina, and it's just all so different with its own little gems hidden.
Awesome. And that's why I had to ask, because I feel like you've just been in so many different regions that's just so incredible. All right. So without further ado, what are the three words you would use to describe nursing school?
I would describe nursing school as doable, community, and resilience.
Awesome. And three of your favorite songs in life right now.
I would say that my favorite is Paul Revere by Noah Kahn, mostly because it has a great little mandolin bit to it, and that I just love hearing that every time. The Architect, just because that's a song that's really hit my heart a lot of the times growing up. And then Feel Again, just because that one holds like special memories through school retreat.
Oh, how cool. And I love the reasons. Like, I love finding out why these songs are favorites. So, thank you for
Yes.
sharing those. Well, then let's get to know just a little bit more about you. And because your response to one of my prompts was rather substantial, let's just open up with telling us about your family. What do you want to tell us about your family?
So family is very diverse. I was actually born in China. And I lived with my foster mom for a couple months, and then she dropped me off at a shopkeeper's place, like at a shop, and the shopkeeper took care of me for a couple more months until they were pressured to take me to the orphanage for yet a couple more months. From like I think I was around 9 months old, is what the documents say. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I began foster care shortly after going to the orphanage. And I was in foster care up until I was 5.5 years old when I was adopted into the US.
Oh, my goodness. So, tell us all about your amazing family.
Well, like I said before, my dad was in the military. My mom did a little bit of time in the military, but that was before my coming into the family. But at the time, we lived in Kansas, and I was just fresh from China and trying to integrate into the family. So that was definitely a difficult period of time for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But then I integrated pretty quickly and had just all the childhood fun, playing with neighbors, things like that. And then we moved to New Orleans, which was honestly a blast to live in. We had like a good community of people from my dad's work, and we were all involved in extracurriculars. And that's also where my younger sister, who was also adopted from China, came into our family. So about a year and a half after my adoption, or 2 years after my adoption, was when we adopted my sister. And then we also got our dog there too, our childhood dog in New Orleans, not too long after my sister came into the family. And so we were in New Orleans for 3 years and then moved to South Carolina. And then after 2 years, my dad retired. And my mom actually ended up homeschooling all four of us together, starting in South Carolina. So I believe my sister was around kindergarten level. I was in third grade. One of my brothers, who's just 6 months older than me, was in fourth grade. And my oldest was in fifth or sixth grade, somewhere around in middle school. So definitely very different levels of teaching, but she
Yeah.
she made it work all the way up until all of us eventually transferred to private school.
Wow. I mean, your story already, I'm just like, oh my goodness. And knowing a little bit more about Lily, I mean, adoption in and of itself, as you said, there's a lot of challenges, right? For you as the adoptee and the adopted daughter and the family, you know what I mean? Adopting various children. And that doesn't even include what I know about you and your background. And so we'll get into that here in a minute. But I appreciate that you wanted to share a little bit about that, because it's not often we get to hear about adoption. And is this something? Let me ask you this, and maybe this is too pointed of a question. Is this something that you want to pay forward? Do you see yourself maybe adopting somebody down the road, or is this just, you know what I mean, your life?
I could definitely see myself adopting or even just fostering for a little bit of time. And my relationship with having kids is a little complicated, which we can get into a little bit later.
So then you are from China, and
Mhm.
you've talked about how you were I don't like the term military brat, but you were a military family.
Yes.
Yes. And you were a military family and went quite a few places. Have you traveled elsewhere in like leisurely pursuits?
hmm After my dad retired from the military, we packed up all of our belongings into a storage unit and bought an RV that could fit all of us and a car that can fit like all six of us plus the dog plus a cat. And we just drove around the US for 3 months. Just drove around, visited places, road tripped, visited friends and family that my parents made throughout their military career, just because, when you're in the military, you meet so many people who end up
Yeah.
all these places and you visit people. So I've done a lot of road tripping in my short life, but I went back to China actually when I was 10, because even though it was a closed adoption, they taught me to memorize their phone number, and they snuck their contact information into like the documents. So we have actually kept in touch for the majority of my life. COVID made things a little bit hard, so it's harder to get in touch now. We haven't been in touch for quite a while.
Oh,
But we went back when I was 10 and I revisited my foster family.
wow. Okay. I mean, I have to ask, what was that like?
It was a very jarring experience, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Just because by then I wasn't able to retain any Mandarin, because who do you find in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, that speaks Mandarin? So that was definitely like an interesting thing where I went back and there were all these people. So when I lived with my foster family, my foster dad was a businessman. My foster sister, she was in school. And so during the days, I'd hang out with my foster mom, and like we'd go to the market every day. And I went to preschool every once in a while. Or I don't know if it was like a formal preschool or what it was, but we learned how to write and read and stuff. But because we went out so much, everyone in the little town knew who I was. And so when I went back, my foster mom must have told everyone that I was coming back or something, because she like lifted me up onto her shoulders and everyone was like hoarded around me and crowded around me and was asking like, "Do you remember me? Do you remember me?" and all these things. And
Oh.
yeah, my foster sister came and I think brought her fiance at the time to meet me, and my foster grandmother, who actually spoke, I think, probably a different dialect. So I think Cantonese or something like that was
Okay.
there. So lots of friends and family were there for my coming back.
That is an incredible like journey, like in
Yes.
just the very short period of time in the first front of your life, right?
hmm
Wow. Well, I want to dive right into this because as I alluded to here, and let me back up. This comes with a qualification, everybody, because nursing school is hard. And if you didn't know that already, we got issues. But anyone listening to this podcast knows it's hard. Anyone who's been in nursing school knows it's hard. And so I've always maintained that, of course, it's challenging. I don't care if you have the most boring, benign background of life and life hasn't touched you yet in a way that has made challenges even more challenging. Maybe things have been smooth. I don't know. But even if that's you, and if that's you, reach out because I'd love to find out how you avoided the pains of life. But if that's you, it's still, and you're in nursing school is still hard. And the purpose of episodes like this are not to make you feel like, well, gosh, if Lily can do it, I can do it. It's not that kind of a thing. The heart behind episodes about like what you're about to hear with Lily's story is that The hope is that you just are as inspired as I am. When I find, like, when I first read Lily's story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and my instinct, of course, is like, when I'm in nursing school, I need to stop my whining, right? Like, but the truth of the matter is, it's hard for all of us. It's hard for all of us. But Lily gets a couple of extra layers that makes it even a little more challenging, we'll say, than the average bear. So let's just dive right in. And Lily, you're the owner of this story, so you want to talk about your medical journey. You just take the reins, sister, and if I think of things, I'll just ask you along the way. But tell us all about what you want to share.
Okay, that sounds great. So I was born with a good handful of medical conditions, and in China they knew about some of them. So I was born with a club foot. I guess I'll just reveal them as we learn it, like as my parents kind of
Okay.
found out about the diagnoses, just
Yeah.
to kind of do that. But I was born with a club foot. My right foot was clubbed, and I was also born with an imperforate anus or rectal malformation, which is not very common, especially with the type that I was born with. It's called a cloacal anomaly, cloacal malformation, and that's one of the more complex types. And so I actually had surgery probably when I was around 1.5, almost 2 years old for my club foot first. And that surgery wasn't done quite right. Usually you would cast for a club foot. That's kind of the new thing, the best, least invasive thing. But they ended up doing surgery instead. So that caused permanent damage to my ankle that my
Oh.
like you can't reverse anything that they did because they basically cut a bunch of tendons and stuff. So I have like 4 or 5 scars, just my right foot alone from that. And then they also did what's called an anoplasty for my anal rectal malformation, which created an anal opening so that I could evacuate stool just from one opening instead, or from a second opening, because all of my openings in cloaca, they're all fused together
Oh, wow.
into one common channel. And so they created one opening for my anus so that I could evacuate stool that way. And then fast forward to my mom, like, and parents, my mom and dad both knew about some of these things. And so
Hmm.
thankfully the internet was around, and my mom researched, found Yahoo groups. But when they met me, they kind of were like, oh my goodness, this is a lot bigger than what we thought was we were getting into, basically. Because I had this other thing where I would take 3, 4 steps and just fall every couple steps that I took,
Oh, my.
because my right leg would give out. And so my mom, being the like medical mom that she is, she scoured the internet and took me to Cincinnati, where that was the place to take kids with anal rectal malformations and other issues, other conditions, to get the very best care. Like, one of the people that created and invented the surgeries that I've had
Hmm.
started there.
Oh,
He
wow.
was the colleague of my surgeon, who's basically the best right now in the like one of the best. So she took me there, and I was adopted for kind of like a timeline. I was adopted early November of 2009, or no, 2008. And then by Christmas, I was able to repeat sentences back in English. And then January was when we started doing all the appointments to Cincinnati. So it wasn't even a full year. It was just a couple months after my adoption. So to preface, I wasn't fluent by any means in English. I could say phrases and stuff and understand
Yeah.
certain things, but not fluent by any means. And so they did like basically a whole shotgun's worth of tests and found out that I have what's called Vactral association, and each letter stands for a different condition. Then they're kind of all bundled together, and you have to rule out genetic causes. So my parents actually met with a geneticist to make sure like what was going on there, and it came back clear, I believe. But each letter stands for a different thing. So V is vertebral, and also, you only need 3 out of the 7 letters in that acronym to qualify as having Bacterial. So V is vertebral. I was born with a tethered spinal cord. So I had like this fatty lipoma, which is like a fatty tumor basically at the base of my spine. And they had to go in, it was like a 6-hour surgery, to go and remove it. and I was in the PICU for a couple of days afterwards. That was my first surgery in the US. So, way to start out with a bang for my
and
mom.
and second surgery overall, right?
Third surgery
Third
overall.
surgery overall. And so,
Yes.
without giving away everything, of course, how many official surgeries have you had?
I have had 11.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Which,
I'm just pausing there so that people know what, like, we're talking, those are three surgeries you've had already that are major, and yet this isn't even half the, like, story. So keep going. Oh my goodness.
um, but in addition to tethered spinal cord, I also have what's called caudal regression syndrome, which is where I have fusion issues and I'm missing. So your spine has a couple different portions. Your cervical spine is your neck, your thoracic spine is like the main torso trunk part of your body. Your lumbar spine is what you would consider your lower back, and then your sacral spine is what you would consider your hip bottom area. I'm missing everything below S3, so I don't have S4, 5, or a tailbone. So that's always like a little fun fact I throw
Oh.
out in like two truths and a lie or something like that, is that I don't have a tailbone.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah, and then what is left of L4 through S3 is all you can see it on like X-rays and MRIs, it's all like weirdly formed. It's like all incompletely fused or
Hmm.
incompletely formed. So that also can cause other issues. It's all kind of intertwined, like what came first, the chicken or the egg. So
Right.
figuring it all out is kind of hard. But then, so back to tethered spinal cord, I had that surgery about a month after it was diagnosed. And so they gave me a chance to recover from that. And then they had to start prepping for, I guess, quote unquote, the big one, which was a full pelvic reconstructive surgery to, like, at the time, my urethra was connected to my vaginal canal. So they had to go in and separate that and create a vaginal canal and then move my anus to the proper, like, to a better location, basically. And that was a 6+ hour surgery also with like I had to be NPO for 10 days, I believe. So I was
Oh,
on a PIC and then I had catheters. Like there's like a picture of the hospital of me with my mom and my two brothers when they came to visit in the
mhm.
hospital and there's just like lines coming from me and things like that hooked up to TPN and
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. And this is, I mean, you're young. You're young.
Yes, I
And
was six
and
years old. I had just turned six the previous month. Because it happened towards the end of July. My birthday's in early June, so I had just turned six.
and I mean, can we take a pause here and just, I mean, I'm assuming you would want to shout out your parents because I just can't even imagine, right? Like they and
Yes,
through all of this, I'm assuming they've loved you, supported you, everything, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a big adjustment for not just like my parents too, but also my brothers because yay, you have a new sister. Oh, wait, she doesn't know how to talk to you. You can't understand her. She doesn't understand you. And then, oh, she can now understand you, but now she's always away at the hospital and
Yeah.
mom's always with her. So it was just like sometimes it would just be stretches of time with just the boys at home, or maybe my nana and papa would come and help my dad take care of my brothers, especially if anything happened during the summer when they weren't in
Hmm.
school. But my dad still had to work. So it was definitely a very involved, like full, like family wraparound help with my grandparents, my dad, and my brothers. It impacted our whole family dynamic.
Wow. Wow. Well,
Yeah,
continue with your story. Sorry, I had to interject there with that.
no worries. During all of this, to shout out my mom, she can basically be a nurse at this point. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've given her enough medical training that she can be a nurse because throughout all this, she knew how to give like what's called high volume enemas. So we made our own saline every single day from scratch and like made this combination of mixtures so that I could use the bathroom because one of the consequences of anorectal malformations is like constipation and
Yeah.
it can be pretty severe to the point where my colon was super stretched out by the time I got to the US. And the doctor that did one of the tests saw the amount of stool that was in my colon and was like, oh my gosh, like, how is this? how is this little girl like still functioning normally
Yeah.
in a sense, like acting normal, not like in pain or things like that. But it was just because my body was so used to the abnormal that it just is what it is. But she had to learn how to give me enemas and also had to be taught how to do clean intermittent catheterization so that my bladder could be emptied because my bladder was and still is high pressure, which increases the risk of reflux into the kidneys, which
Okay.
is an infection issue. And speaking of the kidneys, I only had, or I guess I shouldn't say had, I have one functioning kidney. The other one is completely scarred over and functions at less than 10%. So I really only have one kidney. And that was something where they didn't quite know if it was due to recurrent UTIs as a kid and
Right.
maybe before I got treatment, or if that was just how I was born. It's kind of hard, but they count it as part of the R. And I'm on like, I can't have NSAIDs and things like that. I'm on those precautions when I'm in and out of the hospital and stuff like that. So only
Yeah.
one working kidney, and it's also called a neurogenic bladder is what I have. So it can be overactive or underactive. It really depends. So I've been on medication since I was 5.5 years old for that, basically. And my mom had to learn how to, like I said, cath. And then another thing was that my bladder, when they had scoped my bladder when I was a kid, had so many open sores in it from the recurrent UTIs that my mom had to directly put gentamicin in my bladder for a full year every single night,
What?
just to heal my bladder. It was insane what she went through. Every 4 hours consistently, she was awake overnight cathing me or doing the gentamicin irrigations.
Lily, I can't. I know we don't record video for a reason, but I'm sitting here with my mouth agape this entire time. You are an incredible, incredible human being, and so is your mom, and so is your family. This is amazing. I continued your story. Sorry. Wow.
Yeah, so after that big surgery, everything was actually pretty stable, pretty good. My kidneys were looking good. And the only neck surgery I had in my like young childhood was called a Malone appendicostomy, which is basically where they take your appendix, because your appendix is attached to your large intestine, and they bring it to the surface of your abdominal wall. So for me, they actually just put it into my belly button. They like
Oh.
just use my belly button. So like cosmetically, you can't even tell that it's there. But it's basically a way to do an enema, but from above instead of having to go from below.
Hmm.
So I would just thread a catheter in, connect everything, and let it flush out my colon from top down. And that was for quality of life so that I could have my own independence and be able to do things on my own eventually and not have to have my parents with me all the time. And it was just like a less traumatic way of doing bowel
Yeah.
management because another thing that I forgot to mention was with the big pelvic reconstruction surgery, whenever you create an opening that has to stay open, you have to keep it open manually. So we had to do months of what's called dilations. So it's basically what it sounds like. You have like this plastic or metal rod and you have to put it through the opening like every single day, basically. And that was probably the hardest thing on not only me, but my mom and the rest of my family, because as you can imagine, having something there is not comfortable in the pelvic region. So that was definitely something that was a very hard time for everyone to go through because my mom hated doing it. Obviously, I hated it. And then my brothers would hear all the like
Oh.
commotion and stuff like that because we lived in a small apartment. Or actually, no, we were in the house at that time, but still,
Still, yeah.
you could still hear it. So that was definitely like a very big challenge to get through. But after that, I got the Malone surgery, and honestly, life was good. Life was normal besides just like yearly doctor checkups. I would just
Hmm.
do yearly doctor checkups and I would do my flushes every single day. And I learned to cath myself. I taught myself how to cath when I was almost 7 years old, just because I didn't
Wow.
want my mom doing it anymore. So around the end of like right before I turned 7, basically, is when I wanted to cath myself. So I was cathing myself. My parents were still helping me with the flushes, but life was pretty normal. I lived a very normal life growing up, honestly, besides obviously the medical stuff. But I
Yeah.
was able to still do all the things that kids my age could do. I just had to step away for about an hour to hour and a half each day to do my flushes.
Hmm.
And we always planned our days around that because I would usually do it in the evenings. So any activities that I was doing, I would either do my flush before or do my flush after. So it was just about scheduling and planning and stuff. But if things were planned and they went according to plan, then it was great.
Wow. I don't even know where to go from here other than I can obviously this takes a physical toll. You've talked about that, right? What kind of mental toll does that take on you as a young? I mean, I know that as a peds nurse, like we always said, you know what I mean? Kids are just absolutely incredible. Our hemonc patients, they're fighters. You know what I mean? They don't know any different. And I get that spirit from you straight away. But I mean, it had to take some sort of a toll, or maybe it still does. I don't know. But go down that road for us if you don't mind.
It definitely was a difficult thing to navigate growing up because when you're really little, like in kindergarten, first grade, you can't really tell peers just because it's either they'll ask a bunch of questions or things like that. Like one time in kindergarten, so when I was in school, the school nurse would come get me and cath me during school in her office and stuff like that just because I wasn't able to cast myself at the time, and one of the girls in my class noticed that whenever the teacher said everyone had to go try use the bathroom, I didn't have to go, or like I didn't go. And then so she was a little bit, I don't know, she just like called over the teacher and asked the teacher, or was saying Lily didn't go into the bathroom to even try to go potty. And when I before she called the teacher, I said, mind your own beeswax. And then she called the teacher when I said that. And then the teacher was like, what's going on? And then the girl was telling her about her little, like, her question about why I didn't have to go into the bathroom. And the teacher basically said, mind your own business in the nicer
Yeah.
way, like in a more teacherly way. And then when
Yeah.
the teacher turned around, I kind of smirked at the girl, which is probably not very nice, but I had learned my own ways of navigating situations. It wasn't until probably close to eighth grade or freshman year of high school that anyone from any one of my friend groups really knew about all the like more details about my medical history, like about my medical journey, just because, middle school is an awkward stage. It's really hard with that. And one of the things that I struggled with in middle school was, so another condition I have is called MRKH, Mayer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome. And it's basically where everyone who has it has XX female chromosomes, but their uterus or their vaginal canal or both are underdeveloped. And
Oh,
so, because of that, they don't get a period. They still have hormonal cycles because ovaries are still there, but you don't have the physical bleeding. Or
okay.
if you do have some bleeding because you have part of your uterus that works, but not the vaginal portion, then the blood accumulates and that becomes a medical emergency sort of thing. Like that can be an issue. But with me, I had an underdeveloped uterus and they actually went ahead and took it out when I was 6 during the reconstructive surgery,
Hmm.
just so I wouldn't have to deal with any complications from it because it wasn't going to be functional. And
Yeah.
so when other girls were talking about getting their periods and stuff, that was like a conversation that I felt left out about. And that's why I say my relationship with having kids is a little bit rough because it's something that I'd love to have biological kids, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be expensive any
Yeah.
route I go. So that's kind of just like I've toyed with that a lot throughout my life. But another factor that comes with all this medical stuff is that I was actually diagnosed with PTSD from all of these medical things.
Yeah.
Um, just because of how invasive they were, and like the particular area of the body that it was. Because, like for me, IVs. You can poke me all day and anything like that, but if I have to get any sort of physical exam, that's where it kind of manifests, is in
Yeah.
those things, or going under anesthesia, those types of things. So that's
Yeah.
definitely that something that I've been working with a counselor through and things like that. So that's been its own journey.
Yeah, I would say. So, Lily, looking at the time, I feel like this is an incredible jumping point to turn you into a two-part episode. So, before we do, is there any other part of this? I mean, mind-boggling. I don't have a better descriptive word term for it. This mind-boggling medical journey that you wanted to share with us.
There is a point more recently where I had a bit of a flare with my medical journey where the stability from childhood flared and a bunch of stuff happened. So I think that would be a great segue into the next episode.
Aha, because that being recent, I'm assuming that means it happened during nursing school. Yes.
Yes, it did.
Yes. All right. Well, then you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, everyone. Just let's head on to the part B of the Lily Wright experience, and we hope to see you guys there. Here's what's happening on the next episode of Feeding Our Young.
I think that disability advocacy is a huge thing, especially in nursing, because there's not that many or just healthcare in general, healthcare people from what I've seen in media or people that I've met who have both sides, have seen both perspectives of being in the hospital bed versus being at the bedside. And that's why I think advocacy is so important. I was actually the president of the Disabled Student Union on campus for a year, but then nursing school got too busy and I had to say no to things. But in that, I organized a partnership with our nursing club, GSNA, on campus, where the members of DSU basically shared their personal experience and basically shared what they would want a nurse to know about what it's like to be in that hospital bed. And the nursing students had the opportunity to learn and ask curious questions about, what could I do differently? How could I approach this? How could,
Mm.
like, different things like that, to have a conversation in between the two different groups. And I got a lot of really good feedback in that. Both um, DSU members and GSNA members benefited from that conversation that we facilitated.
Did you like today's episode of Feeding Our Young? Want to know more about the Feeding Our Young movement? Check out our website at feedingouryoung.org. Would you like to be featured on a future episode? Maybe have Eric bring his unique brand of encouragement to your nursing students or nurses? Please text us at 509-666-5636 or email us at info@feedingouryoung.org. We're so excited to have you return to hear our next honored guest. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Feeding Our Young LLC. Again, that's username Feeding Our Young LLC. Until next time, be encouraged and go find someone to encourage today.